If the name's anything to go off, there's a chance that Monkey Mountains and Chimpanzee Clouds were originally two separate worlds at some point during development. At any rate, the two world themes actually complement each other well, and give the progression a sort of dynamic movement to it, moving through caves, up to the tops of the mountains, and into the clouds. The case could be made that this area directly influenced both DKC 2 and 3, and like Gangplank Galleon, served as a sort of prototype for two different worlds. DKC 2's The Flying Croc was planned as being a full sky-themed world, which likely would have featured a lot of what we'll see here, as well as in the next world. And DKC 3's Razor Ridge contains elements of the mountains and cave levels we'll see here. Razor Ridge features a mix of cave and cliffside level themes, and even has a level named Pothole Panic, which is the name of the first level of this world. But the mountain levels in Monkey Mountains and Chimpanzee Clouds feel closer in style to the waterfall levels, most prevalent in Cotton Top Cove. So it'd probably be more appropriate to say the mountain level theme here served as a precursor to the waterfall level theme, as opposed to Monkey Mountain serving as a prototype for any one world. This is getting way off track. This is part 3 of Overthinking Donkey Kong Land. Overworld time. Honestly, there's not really a lot we can talk about here. It's not a bad looking overworld, it's just lacking in details. It's caves, mountains, and clouds. It's expansive and fits the established visual style, but there aren't any real landmarks to point to. Probably the most interesting thing I can say about it is that this could be a look at the other side of the island. Maybe in terms of elevation, this area sits nicely between Vine Valley and Gorilla Glacier. Seeing as there are mountains and sky in the background, it's possible that this area is a sort of valley, with the bulk of DK Island behind our perspective, and the mountains in the background creating a sort of bowl shape around this spot. If that's the case, it could be a sort of hidden paradise on the island. Alright, let's take a look at the levels. Pothole Panic gives us our first cave level. The caves were the most common level theme in DKC, so having to wait literally half the game for one in Donkey Kong Land is a welcome change. That seems to be the point of the level too. There's no new gameplay mechanics or enemies, I mean, unless you count crawling passages. You could make the argument that the tires are the key gameplay element, or that it's a successor to Bouncy Bonanza, but I don't really feel like that's the case. When playing this level, I thought it would be a desaturated purple, like the bonus areas in DKC, but less saturated. It'd be cool if they were a blue color too, but it'd probably just be a similar golden brown to the majority of the cave levels in DKC. Mountain Mayhem gives us another first, with the mountain tile set, and brings a lot to the table. It's an absolute marathon of platforming that's never too challenging, but doesn't make things too easy either. The focal point of the level seems to be the setting, but Mountain Mayhem introduces a new hazard in the form of falling boulders, which is the dominant obstacle in the level. My only complaint is that the new tile set is a bit bare bones and repetitive, but that's definitely nitpicking. The cliff and waterfall tile sets in DKC 3 are some of the best looking themes in the game, so maybe Donkey Kong Land had to walk so DKC 3 could run. I feel like this level would be fairly washed out, with beige, brown, or grey being the dominant colour. Work in some cliffside foliage or something, and it could work well. Track Attack is the first sky-themed level in the game, and while I'm glad they brought yet another new idea to the table, I've got to say, the sky tile set looks god-awful. It's the Mr. Blobby of level designs. I don't understand what all the background shapes are, and I don't want to know. I honestly doubt there was any thought behind it other than, let's make the background a bit busier, which I don't think is necessary. Clouds and sky are more than enough. The focal point is the platform on the track. It's like a harder version of Trick Track Trek, both because the platform is way smaller and the controls are dog shit. Hogwash shows up again here, and I've got to say, he's in his element here, both in terms of matching the level theme and actually being a solid challenge. For the visuals, I think it could just be rad to have a level in the clouds. Get rid of the weird background shit and just give us clouds, sky, and wind. It worked for Main Brace Mayhem, so why not here too? Spikey Tire Trail has minces up the butt. It's like manic minces on bath salts. There are 3 slippers and 4 critters throughout this fairly long level, which might just be the lowest number of enemies in any one level of Donkey Kong Land. I think it could be cool if Spikey Tire Trail was a shade of green, to further solidify the connection to manic minces. Maybe a more yellowish, desaturated green. Actually, I think a more blue jade green would fit the world theme better. The interesting thing about this level is it can go fuck itself. I died so much here that I actually resorted to using save states. I used them sparingly, but I'm still not proud of it. The gameplay is centered around the same platform as Track Attack, though instead of following a trail, it now moves inside a space, moving in any of the 4 compass directions until it hits a wall or you jump off and land back on it. Both will change its direction by 90 degrees anti-clockwise. It's also one of the longest levels in the game, with 3 separate checkpoints. This feels like the centerpiece of Monkey Mountains and Chimpanzee Clouds to me, despite the fact that it's the worst level in the game, in my opinion. I'll give it points for doing something different, but that's it. For visuals, I think it could be cool to have it set during sunset. No wind effects or anything. Just cotton candy clouds and a peaceful stillness that harshly juxtaposes the frustration of the gameplay. The next level is, thankfully, much easier. Landslide Leap is the second mountain level, though instead of ascending, it's a straight shot from left to right. There's lots of enemies, even more pits, and the falling rocks return, but it's nothing you can't handle if you've made it this far. You'd be forgiven for thinking the theme of the level is the falling boulders, but I feel it's the pits, just based off the sheer abundance of them and the various creative ways they're made harder throughout the level. After the sunset of the previous level, I think it could be cool if this level took place during twilight, when the sun's down and everything's still fairly visible. Strip away the music, give it a warm reddish purple filter, and just have the sounds of movement fill the space. The final level of Monkey Mountains and Chimpanzee Clouds brings us back into the sky. Again, this level's thankfully a lot easier than our last trip along the clouds. Speaking of clouds, that's the theme of this level. We've seen them before, but the small cloud platforms that disappear beneath your feet take center stage here. The game generously gives you a couple at the start to learn the basics in a risk-free environment, before throwing you into it. You also run into Expresso very early on, which is always cool. I forgot to mention, but both Expresso and Rambi have shown up in several bonus areas throughout the game, so they're much more present here than I may have led you to believe. If for whatever reason a remaster of this game followed the suggestions I've made in this video, I think it could be super cool to have this level set at night. The glow of the moon providing plenty of visibility with its cold silver light. The edges of the clouds shimmering, and the stars in the sky blinking in the darkness. There's so much you could do here. It's something that hasn't been done in a DKC game, and while being completely new, it would still fit in perfectly with the established aesthetic. The boss fight against Hardhat in Mad Mole Holes is my favorite boss battle in the entire game. There are 3 holes in the ground, and Hardhat pops out of one of them to throw his hat at you. It's a clear reference to Whack-A-Mole, and in a bit of genius game design, teaches you the trick to beating the final boss, K. Rool, right before you enter his world. As for narrative, there is a bit we can pick up here, but like Kremlantis, it quickly reaches a point where I'm stabbing in the dark. So take that on board as we dive into this shit show. You could make the argument that Pothole Panic is an underwater cave that leads from somewhere along the outskirts of Kremlantis into the heart of the valley that is Monkey Mountains. Maybe it's the only real way in or out of the valley. The cave opens up on a mountainside, where the Kongs follow the steep, winding path up to the top of the mountain. They get so high that they're literally in the clouds. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that the weird shit in the background could be the remains of some Kremlantian structure, and maybe the ancient Kremlantians, before their city was destroyed, were able to somehow get up into the sky. It would explain the swirl winds we saw in Kremlantis, I guess. There's also mechanical platforms here, which imply that maybe the present day Kremlings have begun operations up here. Maybe the ancient Kremlantians survived in the clouds, and the Kremlings are trying to reach them. Or maybe the platforms were simply used to quickly transport the banana horde. I don't know. Spikey Tire Trail lends credence to that idea though, with the abundance of mining machinery in the mountain beneath. Whether there's something of value here, or the machinery was used to create an easier path through the mountains, I have no idea. Actually, this has got me thinking. If I'm being honest, quite a few things we've seen over the past 2 worlds has got me thinking. What if K. Rool has an ulterior motive for agreeing to Cranky's call? What if he knows something we don't? It wouldn't surprise me if, without even realizing it, the Kongs are passing through K. Rool's true reason for wanting the island. Maybe he wants the technology found in Kremlantis and Chimpanzee Clouds. Maybe what he finds here leads him to building the Flying Croc. Or maybe the planned Skyworld for DKC2 would have been something K. Rool cooked up with the stuff he learned up here. It's a long shot, but it's not the craziest theory I've cooked up. Sky High Caper can lick my nuts. It's possible that Landslide Leap was a detour the Kongs had no intention of taking. Maybe they had planned to stick to the clouds, but fell off the platform during Sky High Caper, which happens to the best of us, and landed here. Landslide Leap could have been a narrow but unbroken path, but when the Kongs landed, they caused a landslide, and the falling rocks broke the path in many places. That would explain both the linearity of it plus the many pits. Eventually, the Kongs make it to the other side of the mountain, and back up into the clouds, where they originally intended to be. And it's here that they see it, the blimp, stationed just on the other side of the mountain below. That might seem like a bit of a stretch, but it says in the manual that DK and Diddy took the blimp to Big Ape City. It doesn't say, but I assume it's actually off DK Island altogether. The Kongs follow the path into the mountain, but before they can reach the blimp on the other side, they're attacked by Hardhat, the boss of the area. They fight, the Kongs win, and stow away on the blimp as the Kremlings take the last quarter of the banana horde to its final destination. And hey, where better to hide something than in a sprawling city? That's part 3. I don't really know what to say. I enjoyed Monkey Mountains and Chimpanzee Clouds, aside from that one fucking level that made me want to throw my laptop into the ocean. I feel like this is the weakest world out of all of them, so for it to still be as solid as it is says a lot about the game. One thing I feel I haven't spoken enough about is the music. It's credited to David Wise and Graham Norgate, though I'm assuming David Wise's credits are all for writing the original DKC stuff that's repurposed for this game. Graham does an incredible job. Tracks like the jungle and ship levels are all well-rounded translations of their originals with some minor deviations. But songs like The Temple, Submerged Ruins, and the Snow levels use motifs from DKC songs as jumping off points to make something new and interesting. And the fully original tunes, like the mountains, clouds, and pretty much everything in Big Ape City, range from ambient and moody to action-packed and motivating, to tense, to downright goofy and fun. Somehow all feeling cohesive with each other and with the pre-established musical identity David Wise first brought to the table. So yeah, not sure why I chose now to say it, but I think Graham Norgate, like everyone in Rare's musical stable not named Dave or Grant, is criminally underrated. Part 4 coming soon.